Hello and welcome to part 2 of our SEO Miniseries. I'm Naomi.
And I'm Louise.
And today's episode, we're going to be focusing on market research for SEO and why this is such an important part of the process. So Lou, why don't you kick us off and tell us what is market research in SEO terms?
Yeah, so market research is all about gathering information. So it's gathering information about things like your target audience. So whether they are male or female, what age they are, what social platforms they use, how much money they like to spend, where do they like to spend their money. Generally in this section, you want to kind of be as specific as possible. We had the very lovely sales on our previous podcast about niching, and this is really important. If you think of it very similar to how you would if you were to create an advert, you don't just kind of post it out there for everyone. You don't say, okay, they're male and they're around this age. You really niche it down as much as possible, just to make sure you're targeting your exact dream customer. So market research is also about looking at your competitors as well. So you want to see where they are advertising, how much they're charging, what services they provide, which maybe you don't, what services do you provide, which they don't, and how are they contacting their customers, what's their process. And again, this one's tricky because it's not about copying, it's about finding gaps. It's about learning more about what your user prefers, like what your customers prefer. It's about learning what works and what doesn't work as well. It's very difficult, but you need to kind of take your ego out of this process and kind of see it from a clearer perspective to kind of learn more about their business and how it could, impact and improve your business as well. So you need to know, how you can help your audience, know their struggles to make sure that you can provide a service or products to help them and give them an easy way to find your business. So a well-researched website is a relevant website. So search engines just want to show, again, the most relevant websites to their users. So market research is all about making sure you fully understand your users, using both competitors as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we touched on this in part 1 of this series, that is really what search engines want from you in order to push your website out to as many people as possible. It needs to have a clear target audience and provide a really relevant experience. So something that I know our audience particularly are really big on, as are we, is finding ways to market and ways to sell their business that don't feel sleazy or icky or forceful. So how can we make this market research process, when we are researching for our SEO, how can we make it feel more authentic, more human?
Yeah, so I think it's really about getting connections with your users. So whether that's like questionnaires or reviews and taking that on board. It's a tricky one because you don't want to take on everything, and you do want to just take it on from people who are your ideal customers. We get it quite a lot that like, oh, my mum doesn't like the website or something. It's like, okay, is your mum the target audience? No. Well, then it's probably not that relevant. Again, it's about taking your ego out of it, and it's not what you like or how you think it should be. It's exactly how the user thinks it should be. It's all about them. It's not about you. So it is a tricky kind of way to get it, but once you're doing that, it doesn't feel as sleazy, I would say. You feel like you're helping, you're providing value, and then you can be proud of what you're creating when you view it as, yes, obviously, I would like to get paid. I've got to live. I live in a society that like it kind of is dependent on it. But I am happy with what I'm producing. I'm happy with what the services or the products I'm providing, and I know that it is helping my customers. When you view it as that, it feels a lot better to do, and actually you give like a better, service and have a better business with it as well.
Absolutely. And I would say, leading on from that, another great way to make your market research for your SEO and for anything that you do feel less salesy is to ask real people real questions. So Lou's just said there how important it is to understand who your ideal customer is so that you can provide the best experience for them. But equally, don't create anything until you've genuinely had conversations with people that fit that market. Because all that will happen is you'll end up putting hundreds of hours into a new product, a new service, a new range, for it to be a flop because you haven't actually asked the important questions of the people who matter. You cannot make assumptions about what it is that people need. Another thing that you avoid by doing this is jumping in at what we call the wrong information level. So business owners, and I do think female business owners in particular, have this terrible habit where we all assume that everyone knows as much about stuff as we do. And that just isn't the case. You're an expert for a reason. If you're not giving your users the information level that they can understand, they're going to get frustrated with your content, they're not going to engage with it, and you'll have wasted a lot of time. So doing that kind of person-specific market research is really, really critical. Make sure you're getting feedback from the right people before you jump headlong into it. So in SEO terms, this means don't write your homepage until you understand what the actual problems that your ideal customers are facing are. Because if they're using different language, if they're searching for different terms than you've used because you haven't done your research, you aren't going to be getting those keyword hits and you're not going to be getting that SEO visibility. So that is really important, I think. Make sure that you're asking real questions of real people and not just making assumptions about what they need.
Yeah, no, I think that's so key, and it's like a definitely a tricky thing to learn. I know that when we started our business, we had to learn that the hard way as well, because obviously we know more technical names for websites and things like that. So again, it's definitely a challenge, but it's so worth it and really needed to kind of understand your users a bit better as well. So another way that you can do this as well, which could help with kind of like the terminology, is again looking at your competitors. So viewing like how they speak to their customers, what terms do they use, and it's going back to that idea that the intention of all of this is providing the most value to your users, to your customers. So competitor analysis can be hard, but you're viewing it from your user's perspective. So how are your competitors solving the problems of customers like yours? How are they reaching them? What are they charging as well? Like, how would you improve upon the services or products that they provide if you could? Or maybe is their branding more in line with their users? Is their website easier to use or clear about how they provide the service as well? There's so much that you can learn from your competitors without being like, oh, I am copying them. You're really just seeing what they're doing right and learning from it. So it's such a tricky one, but it's so valuable.
It's so valuable. And I think leading on from that as well, research your competitors, but also research your target market. If you can find a few good examples online of people who really fit that kind of key demographic that you're looking to target, get to know the language they use, get to know the things that they talk about and the topics that interest them. And, what we've talked about this already in the previous episode, but what are they searching for online? What social media platforms they're using, so that you can really provide an experience that speaks to them as individuals instead of just what you think that they want to hear because you haven't done enough in that research phase.
Yeah. Also, I think it's, I like to view it as well. It's a huge amount of time saving, yes. Otherwise, especially unless you know your audience, say all of your audience, like I think it's Gen Z are mainly on like TikTok. There is no point then me posting everything on Facebook groups. That's not where they are. I'm wasting my time by just shouting into the void and then going, oh, I wonder why no one's kind of interested in my product. So it really helps you understand where you should put your time, especially as a business owner, when generally your time is very limited. You don't want to be kind of wasting it.
Yeah, and you're so right. I think that it's a massive time suck to have to learn all of those things the hard way, because that's a lot of trial and error that you can actually avoid by putting in what feels like a large amount of work, but is nothing compared to how long you'll spend doing it the difficult way. So I think that's really important. Another thing that I want to bring up about market research before we kind of wrap up this episode is, if you are following the advice that we are giving here, and maybe, you've taken market research before and you've struggled to get the right kinds of answers, or people haven't been all that engaged with it, remember that you're dealing with other human beings, likely other business owners if you're business to business, like a lot of us are, who are incredibly busy. They are incredibly time poor. If you are just emailing them a 25 question questionnaire and just expecting to get really thorough, really decent feedback and reviews from that, I think that is a little bit of a problem. You need to make sure that you're incentivizing that process, simplifying it as much as possible. Only ask the questions that are really going to give real impact to your business. You don't want to kind of bombard people. Nobody, people can support you to the ends of the earth, but very few people have got 4 hours to spend on a market research questionnaire from another small business. I'm sure most of us wish that we had that time. The vast majority of us just simply do not have that time. So keep it succinct, reward people for their efforts, be grateful of those efforts. This can be in the way of offering a discount. You can offer people into a prize draw. You can give a freebie away as a thank you for filling out the survey, things like that, things that show that you really appreciate that time and that effort, because these kind of responses are going to make such a difference to your small business. It's such a valuable practice. So yeah, just make sure you're kind of sweetening that deal a bit. And remember, the next time you get a request for a market research thing in your inbox, be a friend, be helpful, fill that out as well. You can't expect people to put hundreds of hours into your business and then not return the favor. So if it's feeling a bit sleazy to you, this process, think about whether you're giving enough in return as well. And that should hopefully ease that worry.
Yeah, I think it's also important, just to add on to that point, to make sure that your questions are succinct. Don't be like, what do you think about my business? It's very hard to even like take all of those answers anyway, and let alone use it. So, you want to be clear, as in like, is my font readable? Was it clear about the services I provide? Could you easily find the pricing of the services? Was it easy to make a purchase? Those kind of very clear questions that are a bit more directed, rather than just like, tell me how you would do my business. No one's going to do that one, and it's like, and you won't like the information anyway, to be honest with you. Anyway,
you're not going to put any of that into action, are you? So yeah,
no.
Keeping things really actionable, really succinct, really clear on. Because as well, like you mentioned, you won't get honest answers. If you write questions like, am I doing a good job? People are going to say, yes, of course, we love you. And it isn't going to, because no one wants to hurt your feelings. And that's not what this is about. We want clear feedback that is actually productive and actionable and constructive, and not just turning into a bit of a pity party, which, is easily done when
tell me I'm doing well. Yeah.
Tell me I'm good. Tell me I'm good. Okay, so that was part 2. That was all about research in SEO and why that is so important. We hope that you've taken quite a lot out of that, and there's some tools that you can use in there for the next time you want to research a new product or service or page for your website. It will save you so much time down the road. We will be back next week with part 3, which is all about accessibility. So what is accessibility in web design? Why is it such an important part of SEO? And more, I'm sure, more laughs to be had.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll speak to you guys next week.
Speak next week.